Good afternoon. You're with Newsfeed. I'm Stephen Critters. Right, over the last few days, more details starting to emerge about the size of what's called the illicit economy. In other words, how much money is lost to government because customs excise operations at SARS are not able to catch people out. Just the illegal tobacco industry alone appears to be very large. You'll know, of course, how difficult it can be to police and soldier our borders and whether they're properly defended or policed. Yusuf Abramji is the director of the group Tax Justice South Africa. They've been having a big gathering today. He's with us now. Yusuf, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Thank you.
Firstly, do we know how much money, roughly, is it possible to even estimate how much money we should be getting that we're not getting because of what's called the illicit economy?
We believe about 36 billion rand a year. Can you imagine what Tito Mboweni could have done with 36 billion rand in his budget extra? For education, for basic services, for clinics, for hospitals, for the fight against crime. These criminals are cashing in, Stephen, millions and millions of rands every day. You have various tricks they are using. It's organized crime syndicates. They do round-tripping, they do VAT fraud, they do smuggling through our borders. And today, when we put our partners onto the panel from the South African Revenue Service, from Consumer Goods Council of South Africa and my fellow directors, it again became very clear that this particular trade is rife. Not only in the tobacco industry, you have illicit clothing, illicit textiles, you have illicit fuel, illicit food products, illicit pharmaceuticals. The list goes on. Criminals are cashing in.
You talk about 36 billion rand. If we got that 36 billion rand in, you could reduce VAT back to 14%. And you would actually have a lot of money left over. That's how much money we're talking about.
Well, in fact, much more than that. You can even do away with the sin taxes, which, by the way, was a bit lower than normal. So I think government really has to prioritize. There seems to be now the political will from SARS to fight the scourge. They've made a number of breakthroughs in our courts of law over the past few days. We say lock them up. The time has now come for SARS and the police service to take a very hard line on the illicit trade. How on earth, I asked the question today, do you buy a packet of 20 cigarettes, and by the way, I don't smoke, I don't know what a packet of cigarettes cost, for under the minimum customs and excise duties payable, 19 some odd rand. You find them selling it for 15 rand. You finding it for going for 10 rand at the spaza shops, for example. So somebody is pocketing the money. It's not going to the coffers for the government, and that is why the people of South Africa are being robbed.
All right. As always, we like to use this phrase. We've all watched too many movies, kingpins, right? Even if you just follow the Americans with all of the resources, the capacity of that state to try and crack down, for example, drugs kingpins, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do here as well. You talk about locking them up. We're talking about really detailed, complicated and difficult policing.
I think it's much more. First of all, SARS needs the resources. They have about 1,500 active custom officials, which is far too less than normal. The police often do not cope. We are told that the warehouses are full with illicit goods and products that have been seized, counterfeit goods. I mean, David Makura in the State of the Province address in Gauteng said about 5 billion rand of illegal goods was seized in Gauteng alone last year. We have suspicion that some of the goods might be coming back from the warehouses into circulation. Our borders need to be strengthened. How on earth do these goods come into South Africa in the first place? Now, I'm told we have large scanners or X-ray machines at our ports of entry. And again, while some strides have been made, SARS has made some improvement, a lot of work still needs to be done. I think it's important for partnerships to be strengthened. The Consumer Goods Council today announced the establishment of a hotline, which I've been on about for a long time. They are launching it this week. They're launching an app for members of the public to blow the whistle. We have to, Stephen, clamp down on the illicit trade. These criminals are getting away with daylight robbery, with money laundering, with tax evasion. It's time to put them behind bars. We even want mandatory jail terms of up to 7 years for those found guilty of being involved in the illicit trade.
It's easy to say. It's much more difficult to do. We have a very long coastline. In a way, we're a smuggler's paradise, right? We have a very long coastline where we have borders with 4 or 5 countries. We completely enclose another country and sort of another country. Sort of completely enclose it, I mean. It actually is very, very difficult to do. I mean, one of our borders is the Kruger National Park. All right. I mean, if you're going to try and do that, you're never going to stop it completely. What you've really got to do is have intelligence-led operations.
You need a multifaceted approach. I mean, Bayes Theron, the guy in charge of our ports and customs, made a point today. They simply cross the border where the fences are broken at Bay Bridge. They bring cigarettes in. They bring all the illegal goods in. No one is policing our border adequately enough. Just the last few weeks, thousands of boxes of tobacco, cigarettes were seized coming in through the border into Gauteng. These criminals are running amok. It's a free-for-all. We really need to clamp down. Our harbors, for example, are a major source of smuggling. We know that Bayers Theron said that the textile industry, for example, saw a major decline in imports because world figures show that only 2 cents in every US dollar is declared for taxes, which means that criminals the world over are getting away with billions of dollars every year because of the illicit trade. We only don't limit it to the cigarette industry or the fuel industry. We are now told, for example, the sugar taxes which have been imposed, they are finding loopholes. Criminals are becoming more and more creative by the day. It's time for government to close those gaps and to bring these people to book.
Okay, so as I say, easy to say. How does government actually do it? We've seen capacity being rebuilt at SARS, for example. That surely is going to have an impact over the longer term?
Well, we unveiled, and today was the official launch of Tax Justice South Africa. My 2 fellow directors and I are committed. We unveiled a 5-point plan. Number 1, we say lock them up. Secondly, we say return the stolen billions to the people of South Africa in the form of hospitals, clinics, the fight against crime, etc. We say ring-fence some of the funds for education because education is paramount, and also expose these people. We need to really start blowing the whistle on the tax evaders, and we need to make sure that minimum jail terms are imposed on these people. We want the NPA to come to the party. We want the police to come to the party. We want SARS to come to the party. We really have to make sure that we have a concerted effort, and I think the SARS officials made it very clear today. It's not a fight only for SARS or the police. It's a fight for South Africans to take on.
Okay, so how do we do it? It's not for want of trying. I mean, there are plenty of good officers in the police and SARS, wherever, who have been thinking about this, giving it a lot of thought. This area has become more complex over recent years. How do you actually go about doing it? Firstly, you've got to start with capacity. We don't have enough forensic accountants for the Hawks to do investigations at the moment, never mind to try and actually rebuild the capacity at SARS.
To recoup the 36 billion rand for the year, SARS has to put more money into the fight against the illicit trade. They need more customs officials. They need to use technology to their advantage, which they are doing, but to a limited extent. We need the police to come to the party. We need the prosecuting authority to come to the party. But ordinary South Africans, Stephen, now have to take the lead. How many of us walk into the markets or to the spaza shops and we know we are buying illegal goods? We go for the cheap cigarettes. You have to stop buying illicit goods, and that's the only way to avoid it. And lastly, we have to blow the whistle on those involved in this trade. These criminals who are running amok are pocketing the millions. They are getting away with it. We have to stop the illicit trade. We have to start somewhere, and I think the ordinary members of the public, the least they can do is to blow the whistle on the wrongdoers.
Yusuf Abramji, thank you very much indeed. A director at the group Tax Justice South Africa that was launched today.